What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I've got one that I was looking forward to from the trailers, but I knew, based on the trailers and then based on the feedback that I saw, I avoided spoilers, but I heard nothing but negative things about this movie. It was one of the worst reviewed things that I'd seen in a long time, so that made me more excited to go and check it out for myself. It's my second review of the day. If you guys like my Steeler coverage, go back and check that out. I've also got several theater release movie reviews on this channel already, so go check those out. But today I want to talk to you guys about a divisive one, and that is 2024's Imaginary. Now, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. It just came out, I think, 2 weeks ago. I'm a little late in posting, but came out 2 weeks ago. I just saw it last night with a friend of mine. Shout out to Neil. But I'm talking about Imaginary, which essentially, well, we'll get into the story in a second, but I want to give you guys the credits first. This film is written by Jeff Wadlow, Greg Erb, and Jason Orumland, and I hope I'm not butchering those names, and directed by Jeff Wadlow as well. And Jeff Wadlow has several credits on his IMDb that I really enjoyed. He directed the newest season of Are You Afraid of the Dark, the yearly kind of anthology they put out now, the 2022 version, or 2023, whatever the last one was. He directed that. He also directed Cry Wolf and Truth or Dare. Truth or Dare was a little cheesy, but I saw that one in theaters and enjoyed it. Love Are You Afraid of the Dark, love Cry Wolf, but he also directed one of the worst things I ever saw in theaters, and that was the horror version of the Fantasy Island remake that came out a couple years ago. So he's got some really good credits on his resume and a really, really bad one that I hated. This movie falls in line with one of those credits. We'll talk about that in a second. This movie is starring DeWanda Wise as Jessica, Piper Braun as Alice, Tegan Burns as Taylor, and Betty Barkley as Gloria. And spoiler-free, essentially, the story is a family moves in to a new house for the kids, but it's a father and a stepmother and her two stepchildren, and they move back into her childhood home where she reconnects with parts of her childhood, some good and some bad. And the youngest girl, who is Alice, finds a little teddy bear in a closet when they're moving, and that becomes her imaginary friend. That she finds his name to be Chauncey, and they bond, and of course the bonding turns into something a little more sinister and dark, with a little more dark intentions than we could expect. It's a horror movie. What do you expect it to be? Those things are all in the trailer. Getting right into the story, this movie runs an hour and 44 minutes. Doesn't feel like it overstays its welcome. It's not super short, but doesn't feel super, super long. I think an hour and 45 is just about on the edge of a good length for this movie. Could have benefited from the ending being a little more concise and clear, cutting a little bit of stuff out, or kind of pacing itself a little bit better. We'll talk about that. But I think overall an hour and 44 is just fine as far as length of this movie. Starting off, as always, with the positives. My first positive here is child acting. Usually child actors, for the most part, can be pretty unbearable to watch on screen. They feel like it's pulling teeth. They're either not giving enough emotion or they're coming across over the top and cheesy and annoying. The child acting in this was good overall. I thought Tegan Burns as Taylor did a nice job with the limited role that she had, and I thought that Alice, Piper Braun, did a really nice job being kind of the child in peril. It comes from the old Child's Play movie. You want that kid to be relatable in some way and you to feel sorry for that kid actor so that whenever the malevolent forces come into play and put the child in danger, you want to feel for the child's safety. I don't think that Piper Braun was like Oscar-worthy here or anything amazing or genre-setting, but I thought she did a really nice job overall. The child acting scenes in this movie, while not spectacular, are certainly not bad scenes at all. Tension overall I thought was good. There were some moments of nice, quiet, silent background stuff or some nice little hits on the score that I thought were nice. Had some good tension. I jumped quite a bit, but I have CP. I jump a lot, so that's not super outstanding. But I thought overall the tension was pretty good in this movie. You want some nice moments, want some nice moments where the doll or the bear or the demon or whatever it is make you kind of worried about what's going to happen next, what's going to come out of the corner. They do a nice job mixing the dark lighting of some of their darker settings with the really quiet tones or the nice hits on the jump scare. So the musical score to go with the tension puts a nice little horror element into this movie. You want that for a basic horror film, and they do that well here. Jump scares I have as a plus/minus, positive and negative here. While there are some pretty good jump scares, they're basic, they're kind of predictable, but I still jumped. They're executed well, but they are also kind of cheap. They're kind of not really all that earned. They're kind of just what you'd expect them to be. So while they are effective and what they're trying to do, they don't feel super earned. So I have that one as a plus/minus. And then connecting childhoods. We see some nice moments where DeWanda Wise, the Jessica character, and Piper Braun, the Alice character, have some connectivity in their childhoods. From talking about their traumatic pasts, their torn relationships with their parents, the abuse they've undergone, the movement they've undergone in their lives, and kind of what the imaginary friend situation means to both of them. They connect those tissues very nicely in this movie. That is the heart of the positive in this story, is that both of these main characters, in Jessica and Alice, have suffered from, again, a lot of movement, a lot of abuse, a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of reasons why imaginary friends were important in their lives, and that gives you a bit of heart and a bit of backstory that feels like it's earned and feels like you can invest in those characters for this story. That's the biggest positive that I can say about this movie. Now going forward, all of the remaining notes of mine are negatives, and pretty big negatives in my opinion. Number one negative, the background characters. There's a lot of characters in this movie that are just there as kind of one-note jokes or just kind of exposition fillers. There's one character in particular, I didn't write him down because he doesn't really actually matter in this movie. He's introduced as a potential love interest for Taylor's character. It's a next-door neighbor that comes in really just kind of for one scene, and then what do you think is going to happen doesn't really happen, and then they go away, and they only reference them kind of one more time as a random joke in passing. So this character has no real meaning to anything. They don't capitalize on his backstory, on a potential love story. It's just a one-note joke, and then he's gone. And it's like, what a waste of this character. Same thing goes for the Gloria character, Betty Buckley, who I think is a decent actor, but she's just there as just this dump of exposition every single time, and that's my next negative too, is exposition. The way they choose to give you this backstory as to what's happening and why is so force-fed. It's so thrown in your face. The Betty Buckley character comes in here, the Gloria character I should say, comes in here and just starts spewing these things of this happened here, and this happened here, and this happened here, and this happened here. Oh, this is happening over here. This is why. She spells these things out in a poorly written, bad dialogue way that makes you feel like I'm sure she's a great actor, but it just makes you feel like they're just throwing this stuff at you when they could have spread this info out and built the story more. They just kind of paste it into, okay, we're 2/3 into the movie now. We're just going to throw all this at you in one big dump and clearly over-explain things to you, even once they're explained. So this character only exists for this big, ridiculous exposition dump, and then for something later on that you kind of see coming, and you're like, oh, that was kind of stupid. So I just wasn't a fan of that. So, and then also the husband character in this movie, he's just there to help execute the move, and then he goes away on a trip, and you never see him again. He's just kind of there, like he's there in the first 20 minutes, has no real resonance, leaves, and then he pops back up toward the end for something, and you're like, what's the point of this character being here? It feels like these characters either exist for no reason or exist to shove stuff down your throat, and in both cases, either feels cheesy or unearned. I don't like the background characters in this at all. And again, exposition, another note, just really, really bad storytelling. They spend 2/3 of this movie just kind of being a basic kind of a Megan or a Child's Play kind of movie, and you're kind of like, okay, this could be interesting. Couple jump scares here. This feels basic and cheesy, but not bad. And then you get into the exposition, and it's like, oh God, you over-explained this so much and made it feel so convoluted that now it just feels cheesy, and I don't really care anymore. CGI is another negative note here. They don't really know what they want to be, and I'll get into that more as I go forward too. But the CGI just kind of pops up at different moments in this movie, and I think it's a PG-13 movie, so there's no real blood or violence or anything here, so you don't get the gorehound satiated. The hardcore horror fans don't get those big body count deaths they like in these kind of movies like Child's Play, but you do get some CGI moments of like trying to elevate your jump scare, and the jump scare already feels kind of cheesy and unearned, and then you go and make it this big demon thing that pops up, and you're like, oh God, like not only was that like an obvious jump scare that felt like you cheated, but now it feels like you're really cheating because this CGI doesn't fit this scene. So it kind of takes what could be a tense moment and what they do spend nice time putting tension on and building up with sound design. And like I said before, those quiet moments that start to feel nice, they give you this obvious jump scare and then ruin it with this cheesy moment that takes you out of the tension of the movie. Antagonist. I don't like the antagonist in this movie. That's nothing against Chauncey. That's nothing against the bear. I think the bear is a cool design. I like some of the POV shots and some of the close-ups on the bear they use, which you see many times in the trailer, so that's not a spoiler. But the antagonist doesn't know what it wants to be, and that's where this whole thing falls apart. I'm not going to give spoilers away, but sometimes you see Chauncey in bear form. Sometimes you don't see Chauncey. Sometimes Chauncey can be a demon. Sometimes Chauncey can be like a clown. Sometimes Chauncey can be a manifestation. Sometimes Chauncey is there. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're a different thing. They keep changing what this thing is, where it's almost like Pennywise the clown is mainly a clown but can be other stuff, and they don't land with it. It doesn't land anywhere because it never establishes what it wants to be. And when it tries to be other stuff besides just the bear, it winds up being cheesy and silly. So the antagonist never gets a hold on what exactly it is and what form it takes. And when it tries to expand itself, it tries way too hard, in my opinion. And the final negative is overall identity of this film. When you're watching the first half, maybe even first 2/3 of this movie, it comes across like a basic Megan, Child's Play, Dolly Dearest kind of movie. It's just this, what's the other one? Brahms, the boy. It kind of plays like those. Standard doll or standard demon haunting a child. Basic, nothing revolutionary, but kind of fun, kind of silly, good time to watch in a theater, right? And then within the halfway to 2/3 of the way point of the movie, it tries to go for a bunch of bigger things. It tries to expand itself and be a lot bigger. But in doing that, again, the antagonist doesn't know what it is. It keeps changing over and over again. The backstory gets thrown at you all in one big dump where it's just thrown in your face and over-explained to you. And then the CGI gets cheesy, and so you don't feel like this ride was earned. You're along for the ride, enjoying this basic film, and in trying to expand itself, it totally loses the identity of what it wants to be. Does this want to be a haunted doll kind of movie? Does it want to be a demonic possession movie? Does it want to be a haunted child? Does it want to be a metaphor for something in its past? Does it want to be a labyrinth kind of movie? It wants to be all of these things, and in effect, it is none of these things, at least not well. So, while I started to enjoy the ride I was being taken on for an average basic doll movie, they tried to get too big for their britches and did a couple of, like false finishes kind of things, false endings, and all these different things. And it just wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy this. This wound up being a bit messy. Again, the way it was explained, the way the CGI looked, the way it was executed, it really got lost in the labyrinth of its own walls. And it's a shame because, again, you had some good child acting. You had a director who I've liked some previous things of, but this one for me does not fall in the Cry Wolf, Are You Afraid of the Dark, or even Truth or Dare, which it could have been. This falls into the Fantasy Island category for me. While not a total failure, because again, you get some good moments of tension and acting, and you get a fun doll story for 2/3 of this, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10 for me. It fell short of average, and the more I talk about it, the more I want to go lower. But I'm going to say 4 out of 10 for now. What did you guys think of it? If you saw it, talk to me down in the comments. If you guys want a full spoiler review, you can tell me in the comments as well, and I'll review that movie for you. Let's discuss what you thought of this and why. Am I being too hard on this? Did you guys like it more than I did or less? And why? Please tell me in the comments, and like, share, and subscribe if you like these deep dive movie review videos. I'm going to see Immaculate next Tuesday, so in about 7 days' time, or by the time you see this, maybe 3 or 4 days' time, I'll be reviewing Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney on here as well, so come back for that movie, as well as many more on this channel. See you guys soon. Stay scared and take care.